What is up, everyone? Megan O'Brien, your Jersey agent for life, and today I'm giving you 2022's year in review. I have a lot of numbers and charts to look at, so let's just jump right on in. First and foremost, we're going to be looking at the number of homes sold. So last year in Bergen County, there were a total of 6,767 units sold. When we compare to the year prior of 2021, we did see a reduction of homes sold by 19%. So I'm going to go through a couple more data figures for 2022, but then I'm going to start to compare it to previous years. This will give us full context and kind of paint a better picture of what these numbers mean. When you see them on your own, it's kind of hard to understand the context. So once we get to the comparisons, I think this is going to make a lot more sense. Next, we're going to be looking at average sales price. So this might give some people a heart attack when you see average sales price. But for last year in Bergen County, it was $836,027. Compared to the year prior, this was a 9% increase in the average sales price. So first slide, 19% decrease in number of homes sold, but there was a 9% increase in the average sales price. Now we're going to look at the market the last few years for some more information. The number of homes sold for the last 3 years. Visually might be a little crazy to take a look at, but the purple is the year 2020. You can kind of tell because you see almost nothing to, oh my gosh, we're super busy. And this was because of the lockdown. Once we were kind of allowed out, the real estate market hit the ground running, and I do not think it has slowed down since. So 2020, despite the lockdown, we had 7,832 units sold. The next year, 2021, we see an increase to 8,390. And then last year, the lowest of the 3 years, again, at around 6,700 units. So it's not really too surprising that we saw an increase from 20 to 2021, no lockdowns, really low interest rates, and pent-up demand from the year prior. But in 2022, we had such low supply of inventory, which is why out of the 3 years, we had the lowest number of homes sold. And it's not because the market wasn't strong, obviously, because of the average sales price, but it was because of the lack of inventory. You cannot sell what isn't actually available, right? So now we're going to take a look at active listings for these past 3 years. This is my favorite chart because visually, I think it makes such a big impact on the message I'm trying to convey here. This is what I mean by low inventory, okay? So for 2020, and most of you don't know this, but in 2020, pre-pandemic, we did not have a ton of inventory to match the demand, right? And that was when we had 2,000 homes for sale in Bergen County. Even then, we were going into a strong market pre-pandemic with low inventory. And ever since then, we just have not been able to get back to that 2,000 available homes for sale in Bergen County. We just can't seem to get there. As you can tell, year over year, it's just decreasing. So what kind of made me laugh a little bit was the lowest number of homes for sale, active inventory in December for 2020 was 1,500 units, right? Again, pretty normal. It's December, end of the year. Not a lot of people are listing their homes in that time, right? But that December low for 2020 is higher than the average we saw for all of last year in 2022. So what we consider low in December would be like a pretty good average, if not a goal for 2022. Obviously, you look at from 2020 to 2021, there is a decrease in homes for sale, and that keeps going down into last year, right? So the peak of 2022's inventory was June at 1,489 units for sale. June was when the news kind of started to break on rates really increasing. So I think there was a lot of fear of, oh my gosh, are we going to just see units, just dumping on the MLS? Are we going to see everybody panicking to sell their home because they're afraid they missed the market? And as you can tell, that didn't really happen, right? We do see the normal seasonality where we have less homes available in the fall and winter months. The low of December, just last month, was 726 units available in all of Bergen County. Next, we're going to be looking at average sales price year over year. So as I mentioned on the previous slides, the average sale price in 2022 in Bergen County was $836,000. Every single month this year has a higher average sales price compared to the year prior in 2021. And in some cases, it's kind of neck and neck. In other cases, it's pretty significantly different. Even looking at the last slides of active inventory, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, we had a lot more homes for sale in comparison in 2021 than we did the previous and last year in 2022. So it kind of makes sense as to why we have higher prices this year, because we just had that much more demand and that much fewer inventory. So again, this starts to make sense when you look at this and then you see that. So it's like opposite charts right there. All right, the thing I haven't touched on that I'm sure you're curious about is interest rates and the market. So let's look at it. Okay, so let's look at interest rates and the market. So the red line is the average interest rate for a 30-year mortgage. Pink bar is active inventory. The gray is pending sales. Now, before you look at this and you get a little confused, please remember that if there is a rate increase, let's take September, for example, right? You see a pretty big increase from August to September in interest rates. That buyer that gets that offer accepted in September and is locking in their rate most likely is not closing until November or December, right? There's always going to be a bit of a lag with interest rates. So even if they're increasing that month, those closings that month don't reflect that interest rate. It's usually reflected a few months later. So what I found to be pretty interesting when I looked at the beginning and the end of this year, right? So the reason I'm going to be looking at the beginning and the end of this year is they're both in the more quiet winter markets, ending of the year, beginning of the year, right before it ramps up in the busier spring and summer months. So we started this year with 920 units, and we had about 414 units pending. Now let's look at the end of the year. 726 units available, active inventory, and 357 pendings. Now, there is obviously a reduction here, right? I'm not saying there isn't. There's less active inventory and there's a little bit less pending sales. But when you look at the drastic difference in interest rate, so January, mid-3s, December, over 6%, I would almost have expected it to be a more drastic drop in pendings. And as you can tell, there is obviously a decline, but it's not anything that's too out of the norm when it comes to the end of year. Now, I'm going to go back to the previous slide because it is the average sales price. You can see summer months, high, high, high. This is kind of where the interest rate started to increase a bit. And you do see that reflected partially in the end of the year closings. Now, again, it's not abnormal to have the closings at the end of the year be a little bit less than the spring market. But if you look year over year, we were still, even though the rates were drastically different, we were still looking average sales price higher than last year. December was basically neck and neck. So the way I look at it is rates did not really impact pricing the way that we were maybe expecting. Obviously, we have this whole year to look forward to, but as of now, rates really impacted more with discouraging people from listing their property. So you have a 3% mortgage locked in 30 years, you refinance during, COVID or whatever, and you're maybe thinking, oh, I'd like to move or I want a bigger house, but you're looking at that interest rate and you don't want to go from a 3 to a 6.5. So you're probably going to wait, right? We're definitely seeing that reflect in our active inventory. Rates are discouraging some people from entering the market, but what's interesting is pricing is still really strong. So if you are choosing to sell, you're still getting a great price for your home. A lot of people just get hung up on the rate conversation. And that's just kind of my 2 cents on that. So that is my breakdown for the year review for 2022. As always, I will be sure to keep you guys educated, updated on the market this upcoming year. I do videos every month. It'll be really interesting to see what happens this year. I'm kind of looking forward. I look forward to my spreadsheets every Monday. I do them. In the meantime, follow me on Instagram. Check out my new website. I'm going to be sharing a ton more information on my blog about the questions you have about real estate but are too afraid to ask, some of my favorite books I'm reading, and just regular market information that you cannot afford to miss out on. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys over on my Instagram and website soon. And check back next month for an update on 2023.